TV Book Club with Specsavers.
The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks is a true story about the first immortal human cells ever grown in culture. They were taken from a woman in the 1950s without her knowledge. Her name was Henrietta Lacks. She was a poor African-American tobacco farmer. And her cells went on to become one of the most important things that happened to medicine, though she didn't know and her family didn't know until decades later. Her cells did amazing things for science, but also had some pretty damaging effects on her family. When Henrietta died, she had 5 kids. Deborah was an only daughter, and she, more than any of the other Lacks kids, just desperately wanted to know who her mother was. So the book, in a lot of ways, it's the story of Henrietta and her life, but really it's also the story of Deborah and the effect, in some ways, of losing a mother.
Well, this, I think, is an incredible book. I think it's disturbing and it's interesting from a scientific viewpoint. It's hard to believe it's non-fiction at times, do you not think?
Fascinating, yeah.
You know, the family side of it. If you pitched it to a TV or film producer and said, we've got this young black woman in poverty and we're going to harvest some of her cells and they're going to save millions of lives in cancer treatment, we're going to send it into space and polio vaccine, and yet the family knows nothing about it, we're going to keep them in the dark, they're not going to make a penny out of it, you think, a bit far-fetched, really.
Yeah.
It really happened.
Well, that only comes in halfway through the book as well, because, I mean, there's a huge portion of the book is just about poor black Americans in the 50s, really, isn't it? I mean, up to the point where she dies, it's just a kind of narrative of life on poor tobacco farms.
It's a brilliant book, I think. It's fascinating, and it's exactly the sort of book I would probably have bought and read, so thanks for the free copy. And I like it because it is quite hard science, but it's mixed with the fantastic human story.
It's a great book for people to pick up that wouldn't normally read anything about science, because it's not too stressful like a whole book about science would be. You know what I mean?
It's not too alien,
It's one of those books I would say it sounds very normative, it's very finger-wagging, but I would say to anybody, you should read this. I think you should read this.
The TV Book Club with Specsavers.